Growing up, I thought I had to choose between pursuing art or science until attending EmilyCarrU University, where I could pursue both in my own way. At ECU, I discovered a whole community of artists who collaborate with scientists to explore ideas and bridge the gap between these two perceivably disparate communities. My work expresses contemporary relationships between art, culture, science, and social practice. In 2019, I collaborated with biologist Garth Covington and created Polymer Legacy, an installation about plastic pollution and environmental anxiety. I use everyday objects in my installations to create a sense of familiarity with the audience. For example, I repurpose plastic as a sculptural material. We're all familiar with plastic. We use it every day. Synthetic plastic was invented in the early 20th century. For over 100 years, it's been used as a super material. Its malleability and adaptability has made our lives easier and better in so many ways. It's done such a great job of fulfilling our needs, taking on whatever form we desire, that it's become unrecognizable and even indistinguishable from ourselves. Life in plastic, it's fantastic. Or so it may seem. From the extraction of fossil fuels used to create synthetic plastic to the wrappers, containers, and clothes we throw away or incinerate, it's undeniable that human beings have an invasive effect on our climate and environments. This reality brings me to an intersection between art, anxiety, and the Anthropocene. Let's take a moment to think about our century-long life in plastic. Acrylic, polyester, nylon fabrics, my glasses, the paint I used to create some of my work, water bottles, grocery bags, credit debit cards, cash, household appliances, electronics, the list goes on and on. These materials and more are all made with modern forms of plastic. The thing is, plastic doesn't break down. It only breaks up into smaller and smaller microscopic pieces. Microplastics, smaller than the width of a human hair, have been found in the air, in water systems, and in food webs. Most recently, even found in a human placenta. In the scope of our century-long life in plastic, studying its effects on our health and other species is in its infancy. The more we look, the more we find. The more we find, the more we learn about the effects of plastic pollution. Life in plastic isn't as fantastic as it seems. In fact, it's overwhelming to think about. I think about how many things have plastic in them and how these plastics last 10 to hundreds of years. If we continue our current lifestyle with plastics, scientists predict that there'll be enough microplastics in the environment by the end of the century to cause serious harm. This triggers my anxiety. I know others feel this way too. I often become consumed by these thoughts, and they make me feel anxious for the future. Anxiety is a normal feeling. It's our body's natural response to feeling fear or feeling threatened. Your heart races, your breath quickens, and you sweat. This is your body preparing itself for the perceived threat. It's more commonly understood as the fight or flight response, but there's a third response to fear, and that's to freeze. When I think of our plastic pollution, I want to fight it, but I often freeze. When anxiety negatively affects your daily life, it's known as general anxiety disorder. Some symptoms include losing interest in hobbies and passions, disconnecting from loved ones and friends, avoiding certain people or situations, jumping to the worst conclusions, having panic attacks, and harmful thinking. I have general anxiety disorder. I know it can be debilitating, and the most challenging part is taking that first step to seek help. If you're experiencing any of these symptoms on a daily basis, have a conversation with a healthcare provider. They have access to resources that can help. Cognitive behavioral therapy has helped me become more self-aware of how anxiety affects my life. It's helped me recognize when I'm having an anxiety attack, identify my triggers, and take positive actions to improve my mental and physical health. Anxiety doesn't necessarily go away, but it becomes a lot easier to manage. Polymer legacy stemmed from my environmental anxiety. The process of making this work was my way to fight instead of freeze. The project expanded my understanding of how my mental health practices are related to my environmental actions and inactions. The culminating installation visualized the social practices sculpting our plastic world and confronted the audience with our synthetic polymer legacy. When I think about how I can reduce my plastic consumption, I become anxious and debilitated by the reality. Sometimes I find it's overwhelming to think about, or my mind just jumps to the worst conclusion. We're doomed. Now, I've learned from therapy that this isn't helpful thinking and that my mindset has a huge impact on my actions. I'm learning to combine my mental health practices with my environmental practices. For example, when I recognize that I'm having an anxiety attack or feel overwhelmed and helpless about our climate crisis, I have to focus on the moment. Cognitive behavioral therapy is about being present to prepare for the future. It's about recognizing unhelpful patterns and creating helpful habits. We can apply this thinking to our environmental actions. Like anxiety, plastic doesn't necessarily go away, but it can become a lot easier to manage. There are so many things we can do. And the first step is knowing that this won't be easy. We're trying to break a century-old habit, after all. Take small but significant steps every day to develop better habits for your health and for the environment. What are the things we can do today, right now, and tomorrow to reduce our plastic consumption? What policies and practices can be put in place to ensure a better future? These steps are actions to develop better habits. And that one step at a time turns into a journey of self-improvement and environmental sustainability. Imagine that. We can create that.